And here we are. We made it. Sorry for the delay, gang. But we've been wanting to do this for a while. And finally, we're here. The day is here where we get to just hang out and talk comics. How you doing, Shannon?
Doing good, man. How you doing? We're here in the old crunch flesh.
There you go. There you go. So this has kind of been in the planning in different stages for me for about 2 years. I've been wanting to do something with live streaming and trying to piece together all the stuff like that, and went through different variations and things like that. And then we just decided, hey, we both like to do this. We both like to talk comics. Why don't we do something? And it's like, let's do it. So here we are, Saturday mornings, again in a sacred Saturday morning. So
there we go.
Did you have a good Christmas?
It was good. It was good. It's with kids and grandkids, it's trying to find the right time for everybody to gather together. So we had to have ours with the kids like the day before Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Eve, we go to my folks. And then Christmas, we go to my in-laws. And so it was a little bit of traveling here and there, but it all went off pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, we did. We have what's come to be known as the Relative Roadshow. So where we start off at our house, we have our Christmas, then we go to my folks' house for a couple hours, then we go to my wife's mom's house, spend a few hours there, and then it's back home to lug all the stuff and the food and everything else back into the house. But everything went off without a hitch. Had a great time. It always goes by too quick. So, but in fact, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you kind of disappeared there for a minute. Must be bad connection.
Okie dokie. In fact, I'd like to start off, if you don't mind. I'd like to do a couple of thank yous. Because I'd like to thank Graphic Man, Micah, because he sent me a package of those cards that he made.
That's cool.
Yeah, they were pretty neat. I was thrilled when I saw them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so cool. I mean, and they are, pretty much one of a kind, So Micah, Graphic Man, thank you very much. And of course, Micah, you can see Micah every week, every Wednesday night at 8:00 Eastern time on the Four Color Fossils show. And I also want to thank my daughter for these two lovely additions to my Funko Pop collection. And this is Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, old school one. We got an old school one, and then we got a new school one with Matt Riddle, one of the guys cool. I enjoy watching on wrestling.
Well, good deal. That's pretty cool. That reminds me, just a second.
Sure. Let's see. What's the other thing?
Oh, yeah, as most of them know, I'm a big Planet of the Apes guy, and I found this in the previews, where I kind of started ordering some new comics again, and I thought this was pretty cool. It's not a Funko Pop, but I guess it's like the brother or sister of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I got to figure out how I can put you on there solo.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of cool. Anytime I see a Planet of the Apes thing come up, I'll try to grab it.
Yeah. Yep. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I'd never heard of those Dorbs, I guess they call them.
Oh, orbs, yes. Yeah, I have heard.
Orbs. Yeah.
Oh, I wanted
And
to go the other way.
That's George Taylor, character that Charlton Heston played in Apes. So, yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is cool. It's funny when you see. Well, I guess because they've remade some of the movies and whatnot, or made some new movies, that there's still Planet of the Apes stuff out there being made. That's pretty neat. You know, one of the other things I want to thank is my son, who gave me a gift certificate to Casablanca Comics up in Portland, Maine, where he works. And so we went up there, me and my wife went up there, and he took us out to lunch and got me over there to the comic shop. So I got a haul, my first haul in about 4 or 5 months. So thank you, Clint. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not thank the man sitting to my left, over there, over there. So, thank you, Shannon. You know how much I was looking forward to getting these, and I want to thank you so much for that wonderful AOK. And,
you're very welcome, man. I was glad to do it. Like I said, we talked earlier. I couldn't imagine my brother up in Maine not having those books. You know, so, I was like, okay, we can do this.
It's awesome. Thank you. So I started to crack open the team up last night, and man, I can't wait to really get my teeth into it because that looks awesome. Yeah, everything I read,
great book. Yeah, I went through that one, and I just kind of started leafing through the Charlton book. But I'm going to dig into that one pretty soon and probably reread them after I get done with them. So,
and I want to say welcome to Eric Breen there in the audience. Hey, Eric, how you doing? I love it. He does the Macho Man.
Ooh, yeah.
That's perfect. But so. The reason me and Shannon wanted to get together and do this is a lot of times me and Shannon will talk on the phone, and we started doing what we call non-live streams and just talking. And it winds up being usually at least an hour, maybe 2 sometimes. Yeah,
at least 2 probably.
And we just have so much in common. And we just thought we wanted to do something where we just show some comics, talk about different things with comics, not just comics, but a lot of other stuff that we might collect, and folks out there might collect cartoons, paperbacks, magazines, toys, all that kind of stuff. So today we're going to do origins. We're going to talk about how we became collectors.
The deep, dark stories that you've always probably never wondered about.
Oh, well, you want to start off, Shannon?
Man, you go ahead. I mean, this is your baby, and so let's hear what.
This is our baby.
Is.
Well, I started the nearest I can remember. I started collecting. Well, I got my first comic book somewhere in 1967. Now, we pulled some comic books. Both Shannon and I pulled some comic books that were we remember from our past. So I got them right here. So, but for me, it was just strictly Marvel and DC, because I don't recall seeing like Harvey or Gold Key or no Dells, anything like that at the places where I frequented, which were the Rexall Drug store downtown, and the Snack Bar, which was in the next town over, and like the grocery store. I think one of the grocery stores was the only place that I remember seeing the Gold Key ones. That was about it, though. for me, it was strictly Marvel and DC. I didn't even see Charlton's. So I didn't see Charlton's until I went to one of my relatives' houses up in Sanford, Maine, and they had a stack of them in a wicker basket by the Torcheray, which was next to their recliner. So that was my introduction to Charlton's. I'm like, who's this Blue Beetle guy? I'm gonna find out more.
Yeah.
But the nearest I can figure, and I put down a whole lot of notes and whatnot on when I was pulling these, I think, let's see, where's 67? Right there. So it's going to come down to one of these two being the first comics that I got, and it's Brave and the Bold, Brave and the Bold 75, and Thor 145.
Oh yeah,
so,
those are great books. I still need to get that Brave and Bold issue.
Oh yeah, this one here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Neil Adams on cover, right?
Yeah, this one here was the first time I saw Neil Adams. Man, it was awesome. I mean, first time, if it's one of the first books that I got, first time, that's not too bad seeing a guy like him, you know. This one right here, I'm not sure, but I'm almost willing to say this is the actual one that I had. But I'm not positive if I upgraded, but if I did, it would have been a long time ago. This has got like the grease pencil mark on it and everything.
Oh,
so yeah. And I'm pretty sure this is like one of the ones that only survived my first couple of collections, you know.
It looks well loved, so it's probably an original.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I can remember putting it on the register at the Rexall Drug store. Excuse me. And I wanted to add in here. Well, let's check on Eric. We are reading Fantastic Four 28 last night. I did Iceman as Randy Savage. Oh, I'll have to go back and watch that. That'll be funny.
That'd be funny.
But I had a excuse me, I don't know what it is with my throat here. Let me get a drink. I had some pictures that I put together of some of these places. Well, two of the places that were very prominent in my my childhood growing up. So I'm going to see if I can put these on and see if it'll work. The first one is going to be the Rexall Drug Store, which you've heard me talk so much about, you know, through the years. So let's see if I can do that. There it is, right where the red arrow is pointing. It's the Rexall Drug Store, downtown Rollinsford, New Hampshire. So that's what it looks like today. Now it's like a laundromat, something down there.
Okay, I was getting ready to say, was it still a Rexall? Because the Rexalls I went to, they're both gone. So
yeah, no, all the Rexalls that I knew in the area, yeah, they're long gone. I don't know if Rexall is still even a brand, if there's any out like in the Midwest. Sure. Yeah, I'd be curious to find out. And of course, the other place where I used to go, to me, was just a magical place. It was called the Snack Bar, and that was in the next town over in South Berwick, Maine. And it was like a stationery store, but they also had like a lunch counter in there where you could go and get food. They had one of those things where they used to roast the peanuts and stuff like that. One of those vending machines type of things. They had just a row of penny candy, you know, stuff like that. But in the back of the store, when you walk past all this deliciousness, at the back of the store, they had a long wooden bookcase, magazine rack. And I've got some pictures here. Let's see. Here's the first snack bar picture. This is from a newspaper, and you can just see it in the background. It's from mid 70s. Excuse me. And then doggone it. Gets dry down here in the basement. All right, here we go with snack bar number 2. You can see it's like right in the to the left, to the right a little bit. You can just barely see it. It's got a Coca-Cola sign. Then that's from like 1976, which was right in my wheelhouse, right around there. And then that's it down on the bottom, and what it looked like in the 80s. And then the last picture, I believe, is going to be, oh no, this is the in the newspaper. It was part of a block of buildings, and they had a fire in them, and that was pretty much the end of the snack bar. I think that was in early 80s, I think. And then, but I did find this, and I believe this to be a picture of the inside of the snack bar with the rack, with the magazine rack. And man, right there.
Oh,
it's blurry, it's fuzzy, but
no, that's the good stuff right there.
Yeah. And many times I'd done what those kids were doing, sitting there till the owner came over and said, "This is not a library."
Right.
So
you read it, you buy it, right?
Exactly. But there are books from there, like this one here, 100-page spectacular with World's Greatest Superheroes. I remember picking this book up specifically in there, and I remember reading it as I walked home. My mother had to keep telling me, "Hey, watch the road, stay out of the road," because I'd be wandering, And then what else we got?
Yeah, that's an okay book. No great shape.
No, yeah. And this one I know is my off the rack. If you could see it outside of this Mylar, the only thing holding that thing together is memories. It is.
My copy of that. It was after I started collecting. Some guy had a little spinner rack in a little country store, and it was missing the covers and several pages, but it had like that first JLA JSA story in it. So I upgraded a couple times later. So yeah. That's an awesome book.
Yeah, I got an upgrade on it, but I could not find my upgrade book. But this one here, man, that's seen some days right there. But all right, what else we got? All right, I know from the Rexall Drug store. This is probably another one of the first that I got down there, and it was The Death of Professor X. And I remember because of all the floating heads around them.
It's a cool cover.
Yeah. I thought that was cool, because I guess they had just got their new costumes, I think, shortly before that, But I always loved the letterbox, with all of them just kind of, they look like they're looking out at you, like, "Hey, yeah, you gonna read this?"
Yeah.
So do you want to do some, Shannon?
Yeah, I'll show a few. I guess my interest in comics probably came from cartoons and like the Peanuts specials. So I was always big into the Peanuts, and this is like one of the first Peanuts books I had. Little paperback. I guess this came out. Let's see. This came out in '67.
Wow.
So I still got this one. And,
nice.
And I got a Treasury my folks got me for one Christmas. Lost the dust cover, but I have another copy. But this Peanuts Treasury, just classic stuff from the Peanuts.
Yeah.
This is kind of funny. I wonder what was sticking out here, but this is Peanuts paper towels.
Paper towels?
Peanuts thing's bad for a while. Another thing I was like reading, I think a lot of this came like from the Sunday Comics pages. was BC. This don't have a cover on it, but this is BC Cave In. Johnny Hart. It's right up there with Peanuts for me. BC stuff. As far as comic wise, the first thing I can remember reading is probably Archie, and I can't remember what issue it was or whatever, and probably a lot of Harvey stuff, Casper and whatever else. But I do remember before I got into collecting comics, they had an advertisement on the Archie comics where you could order a digest. So this was like the first digest. So I think I sent off my 50 cents. And of course, I'm checking the mailbox the next day. I don't know how the mail service works, but it took like 6 to 8 weeks, I think. And I forgot about it, to be honest. Oh. But here this one is. This is my original. This is Archie Digest #1.
Oh, wow.
It's in Mylar, but it's pretty beat up, yeah.
That's awesome that you still have it. That's cool.
Yeah. And these things pricey for some reason. I don't know. And around the same time, I mean, my family, all my cousins and aunts and uncles, there was always like a stack of comic books or funny books, as we call them then. And like I say, I like the Archie stuff, but I remember reading this at my aunt and uncle's house, and I never did have an never did have an original copy of it. But the Chilling Adventures in Sorcery with Sabrina.
Oh, yeah.
I read it over and over. Pretty nice book. Kind of a precursor to the other stuff they would do. And here's this was later on. Here's another Archie Digest. Archie Anders, Where Are You? #1.
Wow. I've never seen those before.
Yeah. Yeah, this ran quite a while, I think.
Were those the precursors to the ones you see like at the supermarket?
Oh, yeah, they're still going. They're different titles and they're, different formats now, I guess. But yeah, the first ones are like 50 cents, 60, 75 cents. But yeah, the first one I sent away for, and I had to wait probably a couple of months to get it. But as far as like the first stuff I read, it was like that. And I got a little stack of books of stuff I remember reading, but I don't know if I actually had at that point, or maybe I had a copy and it, something happened to it. But I had a first cousin. He's no longer with us, but I used to go to his place, and him and his older brother had a big steamer trunk, and it was just like filled with comics, just all scattered out. And most stuff there was like war comics. There was a lot of war comics, like Sergeant Rock and Our Fighting Forces and Sergeant Fury and all this kind of stuff. And there was I don't remember being any DCs there, but there was like some Charltons. First time I ever saw Charltons. And this is one of the books that he either gave me or I traded him a book for it. This is my original copy. So it's, it's pretty sad shape, but Fantastic Giants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But this is all Steve Ditko, and that kind of caught my eye, because Ditko's Ditko, right?
Right.
So got all those great reprints, and it's one of those great square bound books.
That's on my list
that I grew to love, and then later on, I did get to upgrade it.
Awesome.
Nicer copy.
Very cool. It's one of the ones you don't see too often either,
Yeah, I've never seen it in the wild. I think I ordered that. I got that off an eBay seller or something. Okay, before, and like I say, when I finally got into comics, I was more of a DC guy. I mean, I didn't get into Marvel till later. Probably one of the first Marvel things I read was this. It like reprints the first 6 issues.
Oh, yes, I remember those.
Yeah, it's pretty well loved.
Yeah.
So, I had some scattershot issues of Marvel stuff, and I found a couple of books that I had. This is my original here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Green Thing. I love that story.
Yeah.
And
Bronze Age, baby.
And here's another one that I had, but when I had it, it was coverless and pages missing. But I love the story, And I finally figured out years later what the book was. Marvel Team Up #3.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And that's just a Gil Kane alert on that one for Micah. But yeah, this is one of my favorite Marvels of all time, probably that and the one I just showed you. So, but yeah, I'll get into some more stuff here in a little bit. But you go ahead and with yours.
Alrighty, I wanna welcome Paula Acosta to the chat.
Hey, Paulo.
What is this? All I see are fossils. Yeah,
They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
That's it. Yeah, we're tag teaming Saturday mornings here with Comic Book Memories. So, gonna have a little fun each Saturday morning, just talking about comics and all things comic related and stuff like that. So, hope you'll join us every Saturday. And let's see, where did I leave off? Oh yeah, this was one I remember seeing at the Rexall drugstore, but I forgot what the other one was that I had. There was something else that I had that I bought. I wanted more, but I really wanted to see this one.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, Hawkman beating up with dusting up with Batman here. It's like, what is that about?
What number is that?
This one is number 70.
Okay.
Yeah, on sale December 22nd, 1966.
Okay, that's probably going on the list. Thanks for making me spend more money.
But this is like, if I had to pick the first book that I ever saw, I would probably say it'd probably have to be this one, because I remember seeing the Go-Go checks. And of course, everybody knows I love the Go-Go checks thing. Well, this is why. It's because it was the first stuff I saw from DC with the Go-Go checks on it. And to me, it just takes me back. And like you, I got into comics because of cartoons, because, the cartoons were a good babysitter on Saturday mornings, So I remember watching the stuff like Space Ghost, Johnny Quest, that kind of stuff. And somehow, I think it was in 67 when the Fantastic Four and SpiderMan came on, that I made the correlation, I think, to, they're in the comics,
Right.
It was just like, oh boy, excuse me again.
Yeah, I missed all of that because we lived in Ohio like my first 6 or 7 years, and I remember cartoons, but I don't remember any of those. And it wasn't until we moved to Kentucky that I started seeing stuff. I guess probably like Batman cartoon and Super Friends and stuff like that. So I missed all the Marvel stuff. And of course, a lot of the time, my dad controlled the TV, so we had to watch what. Of course, a lot of stuff was great, a lot of the westerns and all that stuff. But that was one of those things where you had one TV, and if you knew somebody that had two TVs, then they were rich. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to watch all the Hanna-Barbera stuff, and we had the rabbit ears, the antenna thing, and so we could only get maybe 4-5 channels to watch, but some family friends that lived down through the woods behind us, they had a rotary antenna, so where they could make it
they were rich, right?
Yeah, they could pull in all the really the Hanna-Barbera cartoons that I didn't get to see, like Touche Turtle and all those ones, Wally Gator, Magilla Gorilla, all those ones that I never got to see because they weren't on the channels that we got. So that was pretty neat. But I grew up with the Hanna-Barbera superheroes, so I think that's probably why I've gravitated so much to the superheroes, more so than, I still bought some of the horror ones. I still bought some of the Western ones. But primarily I was a superhero guy. I love the morality play of good triumphing over evil. So I love that. Plus, like you, I love square bounds, and I remember getting this for a birthday
Yeah, that's
present.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, love these square bounds. This is Marvel Superheroes number 14. So,
And
but
we,
this is
we yeah, we've talked about this before with the square bounds and the 100 pagers that DC put out and the 80-page giants and the annuals. I mean, those were like a really good history lesson. I mean, it was like, little snapshots of the history of the companies.
yep.
And you'd see all those little editors' notes that refer back to, Daredevil 6 or refer back to Action Comics 347 or something. They'd have that little asterisk in there. And that was always pretty cool.
That was one of the driving forces behind me really becoming a serious collector, was because you'd see those footnotes and then you'd wonder, well, what is that referring to? I want that story. But back in those days, there was no eBay or comic book stores or anything like that. Unless you knew somebody that had a stack of old comics and they had it, who knew?
Right.
So it was just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. Let's see what else is going on in the chat here. Gil Kane appreciation alarm activated.
I knew it was going to go off as soon as I see that Marvel team up.
And then Mr. Breen, joys of the one TV household. Yeah, I didn't see the first episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker because my brother commandeered the TV for Policewoman. Oh, Angie Dickinson.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out Andy Dickinson wasn't a bad consolation. I remember that. I remember that. Yeah. Kolchak,
awesome.
the Night Stalker. But for me, it was, on Saturday mornings, it was cartoons. And then later on, after my grandfather got a hold of me, he told me about pro wrestling. So there was cartoons, pro wrestling, and then roller derby. And then after that was Creature double feature. So, and that was a pretty good Saturday.
The best.
Oh, okay. This is, I believe, the first SpiderMan book that I ever picked up. It's number 60, and it's Spidey and the Kingpin.
Oh yeah, that's classic.
That black cover.
Yeah,
so,
that's nice.
It's funny though how we were talking about this last night. How funny how certain books stick in your memory and you can remember where you got it, what you were doing, and stuff like that. This one here is Brave and the Bold number 77. And it's Batman and the Atom. Now this one here is an enigma to me, because I remember seeing this on a metal stand rack. It was in a little neighborhood store in like one of the towns on the other side, Dover, New Hampshire. And but when I asked my folks, because I couldn't remember the name of the store, I asked my folks, and they're puzzled by it, but I know where it was, and I showed them the street and everything. I says, it's right along in here. And Dad thinks he remembers it being just a little neighborhood grocery store, but he couldn't remember the name. But it was just weird. I remember coming up to the counter. I couldn't see over the counter, and seeing the comics over there. And this one here stood out. The bright yellow cover.
Oh yeah.
And of course the Atom, because I was not a huge Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman fan, the big three. I, like you, we've talked about it many times, like the secondary and third tier characters, so Flash, Hawkman, Atom, Metamorpho, Metal Men, guys like that. Those were what I liked. So when I saw Atom on there, it really stuck out. So, but again, it's weird, the stuff that sticks with you.
Oh, yeah.
Here's another one with, I remember my dad buying me this in Somersworth, New Hampshire, at a place called BJ's Variety Store. And it was Samaritan number 3, but it had Triton. This was my introduction to Triton.
Oh, yeah.
And I fell in love with the character. So he's one of those third tier characters that you love to pick up when he guest stars, like in Captain Marvel or
Oh yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. He was a cool character. I mean, he looked cool. You know, he was designed really well.
Yes, I just thought it was very cool. But I remember vividly getting that. So, what else you got, Shannon?
Okay. Like I say, a lot of these books. I mean, this was before I became, I guess, what we call a collector proper. These are books that I got off friends or that I'd read somewhere, and I may or may not have had originally, because some of it's a little fuzzy. You know, it's almost 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember this one. And this was Aquaman 56. And what's cool about this is it's got one of those great second, third, fourth tier characters that I think you probably never see again after this because he gets killed in it. But there was a character called the Crusader in this issue. Here's an upgrade. But Creature that Devoured Detroit, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos, and I've probably talked about it too. This kind of fed into the last issue of Submariner, because the guy that wrote it, Steve Skeets or Skates, however you pronounce his name, he went to Marvel, and so he kind of connected the two issues. You know, Submariner. I think it was Submariner. What was 72? Was that the last
72?
issue?
Yep, 72.
So he kind of sewed those stories together a little bit. But yeah, this was from a friend. His dad and my dad had been really good friends since they were kids, and then we got to be good friends because we were the same age. And he had him and his brother had bedrooms down in the basement, and they had like a big, huge basement, had a big house, and they were into model cars, so there were like shelves with model cars all over the place. And I always had a stack of comic books, and this was another one I think he gave me. This is my original here. This is Justice League '88.
Nice.
As you can tell, well loved. And I didn't find out till later, you know, what it actually looked. So this is the upgrade. I always thought it was cool because you get to see Aquaman's wife on this, and I don't think I'd ever see her like on a Justice League book before. Right. But I always loved this time period. You know, later on when I started collecting Justice League, because you get the little vignettes on the side, and a lot of those were like Murphy Anderson. I think later on it was like Neil Adams. The little heads or floating heads, what you want to call it. This was that I remember. And of course, somewhere in there, got to have my favorite book of all time and my favorite character. Right around that same time.
There you
go. I lost count of how many copies of this I have. So pick it up. I mean, it's not a key issue. I mean, I just love the story. Love the art, you know. And even then I was like, I wasn't a real big Kirby thing. I was like, what is all this with the square fingers and the hand coming right at you like this, and you know, the legs being really tiny? And of course I didn't know anything about perspective or foreshortening or anything, but this is my baby. This is my favorite one, and I've talked about it a lot. But this was around that time. Like I say, this is all before I actually became a fanatic. And here's another one. This I don't know if I had this book. Like I say, memory's a little fuzzy, but I know I had to plug it in the timeline here. It might have been at my cousin's house that I read this, but I remember either reading it or having it. It was Detective 439.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And this story was awesome. I mean, I love this story. And you got to look down here. I mean, you got silver, and like I say, you get a silver and a gold age education. You know, you got the Atom and Hawkman. Of course, you get the Manhunter series, Goodwin and Simonson.
Yes,
these were new stories. Then you had Golden Age stories of Dr. Fate and Kid Eternity. So, like I say, these giant books and the square bounds. I mean, they were always like you say, that taught you who those characters were, and you know, and then you just kind of fall down a rabbit hole after that. Another one I did have, and I don't have my original, or maybe this is my original, but I remember my dad buying me this one, and I remember reading it in the car going the way home. Action 438, monster called Lois Lane.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You know, this probably is my original. Actually, look at it; it's pretty chewed up. But yeah, this was like my first foray into reading Superman, I guess. You know, I'd seen the old TV show with George
Yeah.
Reeves. But yeah, this was one of those. Oh, and the man that tape recorded the Atom. I remember that story really well. That was pretty cool. Okay. Now this, you want to go ahead and do one because this last little stack is like when I actually became hooked on comics. So if you want to go ahead and do some more.
Alrighty. I'm gonna jump into the chat here and we'll see. I'd like to welcome Ranger Sly. Welcome aboard.
How's it going, buddy?
There we go. And Mastodon Comics and Music.
Hey,
good
morning.
morning, sir. Didn't understand
Yeah.
Kirby either.
Yeah.
When I was younger.
Yeah, we all understand now.
Yeah, because it was so different. It was so dynamic, you know. But like you, the square fingertips, the square block knees, you know, stuff like that. It was just weird, you know. I was more a Buscema guy, you know, from that era, and probably Ramita too, type of thing. So, okay, and now I'm getting into. Let's see here. This is probably no, it's not probably. I know it is. This is the first Incredible Hulk, and if anybody who knows me, I know you know. Incredible Hulk is my Marvel go-to guy. I'm a huge Incredible Hulk fan. And this one here was the first time I remember getting this. I remember we had to go down. It was at night because we were parked underneath one of the lamp lights at the Rexall Drug store, and I was trying to read it, you know, with just the little sliver of light that I got. And then we pulled away, and it's like, no, I gotta wait till I get home. You know, granted, it was only 5 minutes down the road, but
right.
You know, now I gotta wait. But
it seemed forever, right?
Yeah. Hulk 118 with
oh yeah.
him fighting old Subby. So
yeah, it's nice.
And I always loved that logo.
Oh yeah,
the blocks, you know, concrete or whatever it is, you know. So that was the first time I laid eyes on Hulk, and the next time I laid eyes on Hulk, I think, was this one here, and this is 125, and it's him against the Absorbing Man, and this is where I also fell in love with the Absorbing Man.
Herb Trimpe on the art.
Yeah. This character fascinated me. The villain, you know, fascinated me. And then it was just, he's up and out of space and he ain't even wearing a shirt. I thought it was cold up there, you know. But and then, all right, switching back to DC, more Brave and the Bold. This is another one that I remember because I love the Creeper. And this is Brave and the Bold, and this is number 80 with Batman and the Creeper.
Yeah, I just recently got that one. That completed my Neil Adams run. Yeah, that's a great book.
Hellgramite is his name. I always thought Hellgramite, what kind of a name is that?
Right. I always pronounce it Hellgramite.
And then let's see here. Switching to another store that we used to go to. My grandfather, everybody's heard me talk. If you ever spent a second on my channel during the time I've been on, has heard me talk about riding down to the Stop and Go with my grandfather while he gets his newspaper, and then picking up some candy or a comic book. But I did not buy this one, but I remember seeing it on the rack.
Oh yeah.
And it is Brave and the Bold.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. Number 90.
Yeah, I need that one. Yeah.
So I just remember seeing that one. And then, like you, I got this stack here, but we'll shift back over here. There's a store, and it's still a neighborhood grocery supermarket called Janatus Supermarket in Dover, New Hampshire. And I remember going there once, and they had a spinner rack in there. And I remember picking this up with my mom. It was Captain America and the Falcon number 138, and it had SpiderMan guest starring in it.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get the other part of this until I think in the 80s.
I think it's the first time I've seen that one.
So, but I just remember this one because he had them all webbed up, and it was just such a dynamic cover.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
You know. But again, the things that stick with you, I remember vividly going and getting that there at Janatus. And then back to the snack bar. And this is where it pretty much solidified me as a Hulk guy. Hulk 171.
Oh, yeah. Abomination.
Yep. It was really, really cool. Great story. Somebody actually giving the Hulk a go for his money, you know. But this was around the time that I started going regularly to the comic stores. You know, I would make it a point to find my grandfather when he was before he goes. So I would make sure I went with him a lot. And then this is 174. This is the next Hulk one that I bought. Was 174 with the Cobalt Man. And this one here, this is my my original off the rack copy. I could tell because I traced the Cobalt Man on the cover. I traced it so I could see the indentation.
Yeah,
so,
I did some of mine the same way.
I never noticed before, but it also has a date stamp on it too. I never noticed that as a kid. You don't think of that stuff, you know? So it was those two, and then this one here. We step into the mid 70s because everybody will recognize this. But this one was, I believe, it was probably close to the last comic book I bought in the snack bar before they closed or before the fire came. And that is Giant Size #1 X-Men. That's where I bought it. You don't forget a book like this. I know that. And but that's where I bought it. It was, if it wasn't the last book I bought there, it was pretty close.
Nice book to pick up, though, right?
yeah. Because I love the X-Men, the original X-Men, you know, and of course they disappeared for a while and whatnot, and they just did the reprints, which was fine because they were stories I hadn't gotten to read. But when they came out with this, it was just like, oh, new X-Men. Okay, cool. 13 years old. So I was psyched to see that. So,
oh, yeah, sure.
But, all righty. Let's check out the chat again here. Let's see. A big part of my love for the Bronze Age has to do with those 100. Yes, absolutely. And the 52 pages. Absolutely. Reprinting the Golden Age stories. Yeah. Yeah. That's how you got to learn about all these other superheroes that, you know, were around in the 40s and 50s and whatnot. You know, that at least that's how I got to know them and loved it. Dr. Silveridge has a much better memory than I have. Well, let's not go. We've talked about this last night, me and Shannon. It's weird. I got a memory for stuff in the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, where you were, what you did, what you bought, and blah, blah, blah. Don't ask me what I ate for breakfast yesterday. It's a blank.
But we do remember the important stuff, though, right?
That's it. Michael will be happy to send you the rest of his Hulk snack. Yeah, I heard about that. I never saw any of those, but I Heard about that. And then Hulk by Herb Trimpe, still my favorite version. Awesome. So, all right. You want to go on to your next one, and then I got my last one's going to be 100 pages.
Oh yeah, well I got some in there.
I figured you would. I figured we'd probably both wind up there at the same point.
Okay, probably in the timeline now. Like I say, this is before, hate to repeat myself, before I became a fanatic about comics. But there was a little store in a town called Mount Sterling, and I lived there later on when I was older, and I had an aunt there, and my mom used to work at a factory in that town. But there was a little store called Maloney's, and it was like an old block building. There wasn't any big marquee or signs or anything. It was one of those things you go in and like you're looking for clothes. It was almost like the dollar store or something. And if you wanted tennis shoes, there was like a big wooden bin, and like all the tennis shoes were just tied together out of the boxes, piled up in a big pile, and you could, one of those places where you had a little bit of everything. You had like a few food aisles, you had toys, clothes, whatever, but they had a spinner rack. And I remember pulling this off the spinner rack, and this was when DC was doing the 3-packs, for like 3 comics for 59 cents, you're saving a penny, so it was a big bargain. Right? Well, in this 3-pack were these 3 books, and I've got the originals of 2 of them, but first one, and I've looked on eBay and I've never seen this 3-pack anybody for sale. If they have it, they probably want like $1,000 for it. But first book was Superboy 197. Like I say, no cover, pages missing. But you see that great Dave Cockrum art, and I think it had a solo Superboy story in the back by Murphy Anderson. But here's an upgrade.
Oh yes, okay, I remember that cover.
Yeah, this was like the first one where the Legion of Superheroes got like co-starring billing or whatever you want to call it. Before that, it was just Superboy, and this is like the first issue where they actually it was Superboy and the Legion, and it's got a great Nick Cardy cover.
Yes,
and had a villain in it. The guy that had the big red mohawk and the red face, his name was Tyr or Tur. Yeah, he was the villain in this one. And Timberwolf went kind of crazy. And Timberwolf was always one of my favorite Legionnaires.
Yeah.
This was one that I read and read and read, as you can see. So that was one of the books in that 3-pack. The other one, I don't have my original, sad to say, but I've got a couple copies of it. Shazam #5.
Oh yes. Yep.
This is when DC started publishing Shazam, and they couldn't use Marvel because Marvel had already picked up the name. But yeah, I remember this one really well. There was like a story in it called they find something called the Anything book. And like the pages were blank. And like once you said something, then like you had control over people, or if something that would happen any way you wanted it to happen. And what is funny about this, and I'll show you, and I don't know if this was like the first appearance of these characters in a comic or not. Let's see. Okay, you see Billy Batson coming to the door of this character right here. And then you see his face later on. Now, does that look like a TV character that you remember?
Oh, it looks like Archie Bunker.
It doesn't name it in here, but that's exactly who they were doing. They were doing Archie and Edith. You can see them down at the bottom there. Oh
yeah.
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 And there was like a character named Sonny Sparkle, and anytime this kid showed up, I mean, everybody turned into, a marshmallow. but I always thought this was great. I said, hey, I know who that is, even when I was a kid, because this was around the time I think All in the Family was on. But yeah, that was issue #2 that was in that pack. And of course, a few of you people might have seen this one. This was the third book in that pack.
Oh, wow.
Batman 251. This is my original copy. You see, it's been well loved. But man, I saw this book and I read it and I was like, I'd never seen artwork like that before. I'm sure I'd seen Neil Adams like in another book or on a cover or something like that. But I mean, this was like, and still, I think it's his best art job ever. Because you see all the details and the Joker was just like scary looking, like in the first page on this you've seen, and I'm sure everybody's seen it, where he's driving in the car and he's just got the big ghoulish looking grin on his face. But yeah, this is one of my favorite Batman book. And of course, for some reason I wanted to get an upgrade, and this one only cost me $20. I usually don't say what a book costs, because to me it really doesn't matter. But even then, I thought it was a pretty good deal, so I got a high grade copy, probably back in the early '90s, late '80s, like $20.
Very nice, very nice.
Those were the three that were in that. So, flash forward maybe a year or two later, I was like 11 years old, and I had to have some oral surgery done. So I had cysts I had to have cut out, and I had teeth that had to be pulled, and teeth had to be pulled down, and I had stitches up in my gums, and I was pretty miserable. So about all I could do was sip liquids and eat scrambled eggs, and lay on the couch for like a week. So my mom and dad, they were like, "Well, so we're going to go to the store. You want something? So just give me some funny books, right?" So they brought me back 3 funny books. Now one I'm a little bit fuzzy on. I'm not sure. So there was a gold key, and I'm not sure if it was this one or a Woody Woodpecker. I've got the Woody Woodpecker in a cart somewhere, maybe my comic shop, but this was out at that time.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So this was probably 74. So it was either this or a Woody Woodpecker. And the other two were, this is Superboy 205. What's left of it. Mike Grell, the 100-pager. That's my original copy, yeah. Here's what it looked like when I had it new.
Oh, nice.
Nick Carty cover. But, you have the Mike Grell story. You got all the great, Kurt Swan reprint, Jim Shooter story. You got the solo Superboy stories. You got some more Silver Age Legion. I mean, this is just a great, great book. Like I say, it's our favorites, the square bounds. And it's like that's when I kind of started discriminating and where I started knowing artists, because I could pick out Nick Carty on the covers, and I was starting to figure out who Mike Grell was, but this was one of my favorites. And the other one, this was Justice League 114. What's left of it? Another 100-pager. What was cool about this one, it had a villain's like Return of Anachronus, and I'm who the devil is Anachronus, Yeah. I remember the story well. It was like the Justice Leaguers were having a telethon, right? Well, this nut job dressed in like a Centurion's outfit with looks like a ray gun, but it was just like a pistol, came and held Snapper Carr and his family hostage, and said, "Oh, I've battled the Justice League and I've done this, and it showed like little flashbacks, and Snapper Carr's like, I don't remember that case, because he was the one that was like the case keeper, he wrote down the case log or whatever. And, so I don't remember. So you're just a phony. Well, the Justice League, it doesn't send Superman and Batman and Flash or Wonder Woman. It sends Elongated Man and Red Tornado and the Atom. And of course they whip the guy all over the place, and I'm like, that's when Red Tornado became just about my favorite Justice Leaguer. But to me, it was like, okay, it was kind of cool that you had like some second tier characters in that story. And of course, along with that, you get a reprint of Justice League 2930, first appearance of Earth 3 and the Crime Syndicate. You know how we are about this, we're big Crime Syndicate fans. So this was like my exposure to that. But really, when it comes down to it, there's a Golden Age reprint down here, and it's called Justice Story. And I've been harping on this story forever to several guys, and it's just it might have been like the first appearance of Johnny Perro. You remember that character?
Yeah, he was in Unexpected for a while, right?
Yeah, I think this might have been the first appearance of him, but the story in this, I mean, it's really heartfelt, you know, and it's like a little mystery slash. It's almost like watching a mystery version of It's a Wonderful Life or something. But that story, you know, even though it was golden age, you know, you have to give those guys credit because I mean it was just great. And you got this issue, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah.
that story?
It's been a long time. I was pretty much just the superhero ones, but I don't remember the story
Yeah.
about Johnny Peril. But
what was cool, you get the little puzzles.
oh yes,
You know, over here you get
yeah. They used to always throw in
things
something
and all
like a
like that.
word find. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I just, you know,
That's what.
after this, I was hooked. I mean, I had to have the next issue of that, and soon I fell down a rabbit hole. And like I say, I didn't get on the Marvel bandwagon until a few years later. Like I said, I'd read a few Marvels, but I was strictly a DC guy for probably 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years anyway, until I started getting into the other stuff. But this was, this and a few more books. Like I say, the Commandy. This was always a favorite. That was around that same time, maybe a little bit after. Of course, you know the Mighty One story. You know where they kind of cross over with Superman in this one,
Right.
story.
Yeah.
And this one was one of my favorites because it reprinted the first issue of Commandy, and I didn't have that yet. Had like a bio of Jack Kirby down here, a map of Earth after disaster. And it's just an awesome book. Another square bound, you know, surprise, surprise. But yeah, that all this, that's what sent me down the rabbit hole and made me the comic fanatic I am today. Speaking of Marvel, there were a couple of books later on when I started reading. This is Marvel 2-in-1 number 40. I think I have an upgraded copy somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Can't remember who was with. Black Panther was with the Thing in this one. Of course, there is old Benji cooking some pizza.
Yeah.
And this one, Marvel Team Up 53.
Got the Hulk. Wood God.
And what's cool about this one is, and I didn't realize this till later, was like it was John Byrne's first time doing artwork on the X-Men because the X-Men guest star in this too.
Mm.
You got Spider-Man, Hulk, and the X-Men all done by Byrne. And I did upgrade this one, but this is the original I had. I'm not sure somebody gave it to me or I picked it up later or where it was. But this is a great book. So that's beginnings of my fanaticism for comic books and pop culture stuff and all that.
That's awesome stuff. And that Commandy, the square bound one, that's in my collection because I saw you show that once in one of your videos, and of course square bound, gotta have it. So
Gotta have it.
But I wanted to do the catch up on the chat because let's see, we got Jambo. Hey Jambo.
Hey, Jambo.
And I think Mr. Breen said he had to go to work. So all right, Eric, thanks for stopping by, and happy New Year to you.
Have a good day, buddy.
All right. And
yeah, but he's going to work at a comic book, right?
What was that?
But he's going to work at a comic book store, right?
That would be my dream job. That would be my dream job, you know. And, hello to Movie World Comics.
Movie World.
Thanks for stopping in. Oh, where did I go here? Still trying to master this. Yeah, everybody saying hello to everybody, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
What's this one? Those old 2-in-1s. Yes, they are. Great to read. Okay. Caught up on that. And when you were talking, mentioning about those 3-packs there, of course, that's another thing you made me spend money on. So, Just happen to have
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple of ones here. There you go. It's a guy right there.
There he is. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's when he joined up.
yeah. It's a great book, Superman. But I don't know if I can tell what's in the middle one.
I think I got that one. I can't remember what's in there either.
I think it's Secret Origins.
Okay.
Yeah, Secret Origins with I see Wonder Woman and was it Wildcat?
Yeah, probably.
I think it was Wildcat. I don't dare pull it apart. And then there's another one that I picked up with my DC guy, Flash.
There we go.
Yeah. And then Superboy. Or Super Mermaid Boy.
All right.
You
Well, see, you saw on the Flash book. That just reminds me that there's a book I didn't pull out. Next video.
Yeah, I was going to say that when you're showing that, I'm like, oh man, I forgot my Justice Leagues. I didn't get my Justice Leagues out. And the middle one was Johnny Thunder reprint.
Yeah, I just got that book recently.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one it is. Whether it's the one with the blue logo on the top. So I think that's number 2.
There was like 3 issues of that, right?
Yeah, it's either 2 or 3
issues there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I need maybe more to know.
And we're back to DC with the 100-page spectaculars. I remember these ones. This is when another point where it was just like, okay, this is where I'm becoming a collector of DC, because these things stop and go. It was a stop and go store that me and my grandfather used to go down to. And this one here.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Miracle. This is number 112. This is my off the rack. And then I have an upgraded version now because it is so well loved. But I mean, it had other Brave and the Bold stories in it, like right here,
Oh, yeah.
And I was always fascinated by them, Aquaman. And it's like, what? These were Brave and the Bolds? I thought it was only Batman. That's when it opened up my eyes and it was like, oh, they did other ones. Oh,
Now that Silent Night feature, was that Joe Kubert or was that Russ Heath that did the art on that? You remember?
On the Aquaman Hawkman one?
No, on the Silent Night.
Oh, Silent Night. Ooh, I don't remember.
I can't either. I think it was either Kubert or Russ Heath.
I'm
thinking.
Yeah, that was early on. Was Kubert doing it then? Yeah, he came in.
Yeah,
34.
I think so. Well, I don't know if he was doing Silent Night. I know he was doing Viking Prince.
Right.
Yeah.
So it could be.
That's one of those fuzzy memory things, Yeah. Usually in the 100 pagers, or at least later on, they would like give the credits for like what book that it was originally from. So,
well, let's find out.
Let's find out.
We've got time. We can find out the answer to these puzzling questions. So we got all the time in the world. Let's see here. We can find it. Where are you? Silent Night. Right there. Okay. Silent Night. Does it say in the beginning here? Silent Night? No, it doesn't list there. Irv Novick. It says the artist by Irv Novick.
Well, I didn't know that. That was cool because I like Novick. He did a lot of the Flash stuff I started reading. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's cool.
Do it justice here. There. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember those panels. That was a good story.
Oh.
Irv Novick.
Talk about well loved. But
hey,
absolutely.
You know it's been read, right?
That's right. And that's around that time was when I started. My folks had already thrown out my collection twice. So it was around this time that I started really taking care of the books, because I didn't want them to throw them out. So I'd put them in cardboard boxes and stack them neatly, slide them under my bed, So, but this was right around that time where it was like, yeah, this is something I want to really pursue and get into. And this is the next one, the next Brave and the Bold I got, 113 with the Metal Men.
Oh, yeah.
So again, love those third tier, second tier characters. This had, speaking of the Viking Prince, there he is.
Yeah,
he
is.
Yeah, Green Arrow, Hawkman, great, Kubert Hawkman, and then this is my, again, off the rack copy, 115. Well, boy, don't look too closely because, man, this thing is all dirty. Those white covers, man.
Right.
It is filthy.
Yeah, I remember enjoying that story, where the Batman was dead and the atom was inside his head making him move. Yeah, I remember that story.
And got a nice golden age story with Solomon Grundy. Love Solomon Grundy.
Now, see, I didn't start collecting Brave and Bold until the issue after that. It was 116.
Yeah.
I
was able to get an upgrade too. So, and then what was the one you just said?
116.
Oh, there it is.
There we go. The Spectre.
Yeah. Because I always loved the Spectre.
Yeah, I love that book for so many reasons. I mean, you got the Spectre story, and then you got the Teen Titans, and then you got the story, the Copperhead story had Batgirl and Wonder Woman in it, right?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, Wonder Woman and Batgirl, Batman, Batgirl.
Yeah,
the Coils of the Copperhead.
You're right. Yeah, I had to get the originals of both of those later on.
And then these little things, DC's heroes that wouldn't die, so they showed like Dead Man and stuff, which loved all those characters. And another Silent Night story in there.
Oh yeah.
That was, that's just.
Yeah, I remember that one, and the issue after that, it was him and Sergeant Rock was like two of my favorite Brave and Bolds.
The one with Sergeant Rock I missed out on back then. I've since got a copy, but back then I missed it. I was so mad because the next issue we picked up was just a regular issue, and I'm like, no, I want more of the 60 center 100 pagers.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that. What did they do?
Yeah. And then this one here, 150.
Oh yeah.
And this one, which one of them is, I think this one on the back is my actual off the rack one.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to open it up here. So let's see here. I think this is my off the rack one. Yes, it is. Because in the back, they got a thing where they list all the Brave and the Bold team up ones from like 50 on, I think it was 56 on, right? Did I miss a page? Yeah, no, 50. It starts with 50. So,
oh yeah,
I don't know if you can.
Yeah, 50 wasn't that Martian Manhunter and Green Arrow? Was that the first one?
Yeah,
team up.
Yeah. And you can see there's circles around them. This was my guide as I picked them up at flea markets and stuff like that. I circled them.
That was your checklist.
That was my checklist, exactly. So that's how I can tell this is my original copy off the rack. And I was just fascinated by this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh, them guys teamed up. Oh, I want that. Flash and Doom Patrol. Wow, I want that. Great stuff. Great stuff. So
Yeah, I really love that story too. I mean, I don't know why it was such a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal to me. It's like, oh, so we finally get to see Superman and Brave and Bold. It was like, and of course, him and Batman were in World's Finest every month. They were in Justice League every month. And I was like, why is this such a big deal? Oh, because he's never been in Brave and Bold before,
it was
other
just
than
like
like first appearance of Justice League or something.
it was like world's finest light.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much where I began really trying to go every week or every couple of weeks to the different stores and try and get them. I'd ride my bike. I was old enough then to ride my bike over town. I even rode it all the way to Dover, and there used to be a store called Reading and Greeting, and they used to have a bigger variety than even the snack bar did. But they were a magazine store, a stationery store, and had like racks all the way down the right side of the building and everything. And later on in the 70s, there was like a year, I think 77, 78 in there, that time period. My weekly schedule was I would go to school, and then Friday afternoon, my folks would give me an allowance. They would drop me off at the local theater, and they'd be playing double features, and I would stay there for double features, get out about 8:45, walk down 100 feet to the Reading and Greeting store, and whatever money I had left, I'd pick up comics. So I really got to get comics every week then. So then it really became a hobby, and I really became a collector wanting to do this. Even though we all know there was a stigma with it. What, you're still reading comic books and you're what,
Yeah.
16?
Right. You kind of had to collect on the sly.
Yeah, yeah.
You get
But
that. Oh God, you're still reading funny books.
yeah.
But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, and where I grew up, I mean, once I got into collecting, I mean, where I grew up, I mean, we lived in a rural area. My folks still live there. It's kind of out in the country. So I knew when my dad, we'd go get haircuts at the same time at this one barber, and the barber shop was just like a block down from where the drugstore was, where I'd go in and get comics. So I'd have like whatever money I had, a couple bucks or whatever. So I learned after a while, okay, I'll jump in the chair first and get my hair cut, and then I can run down to the drugstore and go look at all the comics. So, of course, my dad, he liked talking to the guys in the barbershop because he knew them and all that. So I knew if I got mine real quick, I would dash down to the drugstore and I would look, it would be so hard because you just had so much money, right? Whether it was a couple of bucks or whatever, and you say, okay, which ones am I going to get? So I'd always, want to pick up Justice League and Commanding and Flash and Superboy. And this, like I say, Marvel came in the story a little bit later, but they had one of these great, great big nice wooden racks, sort of like the one that I got in here, but I think it was bigger than the one I have. But yeah, there was just all that stuff laid out. And of course, I would get excited because, oh yeah, the books are, at the drugstore. So I would spend, as much time as I could before my old man had to come hunt me down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So are you done? And I said, yeah, I'll be out in a minute. So the ones that I would finally make the painful decision which books to, keep, and then I would like try to read all the other ones I could, But yeah, that was an everyday, or not an everyday thing. Like every time we have to go get a haircut, or he had to go pay bills, like go pay the water bill or the electric, whatever.
Yeah.
I would tag on to him because I know, okay, drop me off at the drugstore and I go in and get comics. And when and he worked away from home for probably about 10 or 11 years. So then it was like when my mom would go to the grocery, she'd go to the IGA. That was the first place I ever saw the Treasury editions, or the
Yes.
famous editions that DC put out. So that was the first time I saw those, and that was one of those hard decisions too. Okay, do I get 4 comics for a quarter piece, or do I get 1 comic for $1? So that's why I didn't get a whole lot, because to me I was cheating myself if I didn't get like 3 or 4 or 5 comics.
No.
So her and my sister would like go through all the aisles and get the groceries, and she knew, like say, the magazine rack was going to be my babysitter. So, did all that. And I just picked up stuff wherever I could. There was, little country stores around everywhere. There was a
Yep.
store in the town where my folks still live. It was called Burchett's Grocery. And it was just like a little country store. The floor hardwood, and they were warped. Had the old, big Coke case machine, where you lift it up and get your pop out of it and all that kind of stuff. And deli thing where they had like a roll of bologna and a roll of cheese and, a block of cheese and some ham. They'd make sandwiches. But they, like I say, all those places always had one of those wooden book racks or a spinner rack. And so, that was another place. I mean, anywhere I could find them, I'd get them. And like I say, once you got to a certain age, most everybody else stopped reading funny books. So, I would go to my cousin and said, I'll give you a quarter for that. Oh, I'll give it to you. Yeah, give it all to me. I mean, I still got like coverless copies of comics. I got my cousin's names, and I think I got like what was the issue? There was just a 100-pager, 284, I think. Yeah, Superman fights Superboy, and then you find out in the story it's a Superboy robot. But my original that it's coverless, and I think my dad and my sister had written their names on it, so I was like, okay, that's a keepsake.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would pick them up anywhere I could. There'd be like yard sales and garage sales and stuff, and I'm like, and one of the sad stories, I went to a big giant flea market. It was a town called Georgetown, probably about an hour up the road. And this was the big flea market, in Kentucky, I guess for central Kentucky then. But I went, and of course at that time, I'd already been collecting for like a year or so, and I would see like ads, like, okay, here's an ad for this or here's an ad for that. Like I might have like an odd issue where it showed like, a DC House ad, like what you see behind me. And one book that I always wanted was Brave and Bold 111. That's the Joker issue, right? Don't hurt my partner, blah, blah, blah. Well, this one guy had a table and there was like stacks of comics, just everything. DC, Marvel, Charlton, Harvey, Archie. And they were all 20 cents a piece. So basically he was selling for cover price. And the first book on top of the pile was that Brave and Bold 111. I didn't have a dime on me.
Oh, no.
No money, and I was with my aunt and uncle and my cousin, so I wasn't going to ask them for money or anything like that. And I was like, oh God. And there was another guy had a bus, and he had like torn all the seats and everything out of it and like put shelves in it, and there was like rows and rows and rows of paperbacks. I mean, there was like Doc Savage stuff, Peanuts, anything paperback, oriented. There it was, and then he had little tables built out, and he had stacks and stacks and stacks of old comics. So I was like, oh no, what a time to not have any money in my pocket, But, stuff like that I remembered, and I remembered what issues I wanted. I was like, I did eventually go back and get those, but, that was the kind of the fun of those, the hunt,
Yes, I agree, because once I got my driver's license, man, it opened up a whole new world. I didn't get my driver's license at 16. I got it when I think I was out of school. I think I was 18 out of school. But once I got that, and it was just like you discovered, oh, there's like these flea market places, outdoor flea markets. And there was one indoor flea market where I would go every Sunday morning, 8:00 in the morning. I'd be there when they opened the doors. And the fella that right there, he was the first booth as you went in. He was right there. His name was Bill Lockhart. He's still alive today. Just seen him back probably just a couple months ago at my local comic store. That man right there is responsible for a good portion of my Silver Age collection these days. And because I'd visit him first thing I would do is hit the little mini donut guy who was on the left-hand side, because they had those little mini donuts that were sugar donuts. And it's like popcorn in a movie theater. You got to get some, So every week I'd have to get some of those and then go get my comics, But it was funny because we've talked a lot in the past, you and I, about how similar our childhoods were. And you mentioned IGA. Well, we used to go to an IGA every Wednesday night. It was grocery night every Wednesday night. And I used to do the same exact thing. I'd go, my parents would go do the thing. They'd take my little brother with them and they'd go get the groceries. I'd be at the magazine rack, just flipping through pages, man, just flipping through pages. And when you mentioned about the treasury, that took me right back because I remember that SpiderMan, the first one, right there in a special display thing they had, and it took me right back. It's like, wow, yeah, I forgot about that. So I mean, it's just, and everywhere we went, they had comics. Every grocery store had comics back then. So it didn't matter.
Oh yeah.
We'd go for 6 months to this one, and then, this store is starting to have better sales. So my mom would cut the coupons out of the paper. We'd go to this grocery store, but I'd find their comics, and I'll be right here. Just don't forget me when you leave.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I saw those treasuries, and I mean, I would give anything to have one of those cardboard displays of that.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
It's like the one you made behind you. Had the treasuries. Like, man, I said you probably wouldn't be able to find one. I mean, because they were just like flimsy cardboard.
Yeah,
corrugated. And but that was like look at this, and it just, your eye just automatically went to that display.
Yes.
And then you had to make the hard decision. But one thing I wanted to mention, when I go to the drugstore, there was a little lady that worked in there, and I can't remember her name. I wish I could. But as you started getting into comics, and you go to the places you get your comics. Well, a lot of times you go back like a few days later. Well, the same books are there. But then eventually, like a week later, or whatever, the books would come in. It wasn't on every Wednesday. I mean, it was just whenever they came in.
Yeah.
And stuff, distribution was spotty, and whatever books they got, or okay, these are the ones that are selling for us, so we're going to carry these or whatever. But there would be a whole lot of times I'd go in there looking at, they got the same old books, but there would be like a big giant stack of books and magazines, all taped together, or like those plastic bands around all the magazines and all the comics and all the, ladies' digests and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of looking, I could see the new comics. Oh man. Well, she would come back there a lot of times and see me. She's like, would you like me to cut the band on those for you? I was like, yeah, would you please? Yes. On that big stack. And she would let me go through that stack and look at the new comics. And I was like, she's like, you really like those funny books, don't you? I was like, yeah, I like them, I was sort of like, yeah, I like comics, But she was really so nice to me. And I remember seeing her like years later after I was in my 20s, and it was probably like the drugstore. It was kind of winding down before it shut down, and they turned it into something else. Like, are you still into those funny books? Oh yeah, still collect them. She was. I wish I could remember her name because she was so nice. Like I say, it was like a, and eventually you learn how things work as far as like what, when the books were coming out or what all was going on there. But she was always so nice. She was like, would you like to see the comics in there? So, oh yeah. So she would cut the band, and then she would let me go through the whole pile, like, oh wow, and I'd be sitting there like with piles around me in the floor, people trying to walk around me and get the stuff, but I was just immersed in it, like, wow.
Yeah.
She was, I just wanted to mention, I wish I could remember her name, but she was really nice to me.
Wow. Well, I'm going to check in the chat here and see what's catch up on that. There we go. Arrange a slide. Which DC would reprint those early B&B issues with? Yes, absolutely. They would be pretty cool to have.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed. But they won't. Yeah. Sad. Absolutely. I would collect in empty bottles and cans to collect. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pop bottles. Yeah. I did that a whole lot. I mean, absolutely. I would scour the ditch lines, in front of the house, and clean up the bottles and take them down to the local grocery store and get a nickel a piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whatever it took to get those comics. So magical in those. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Ride my bike all around town. Yeah, 3 or 4 different. Yes, yes, yep.
Everybody has these stories, don't they?
I love it. I love it. And it would be awesome if we could get back to that. Yes, I agree. But my father-in-law would say, "Used to is gone." Sad to say, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, so true. We could just borrow Doctor Doom's time machine. Yeah, we talked about that. Taking
Oh
getting
yeah.
a wayback machine, going back to, whatever day you want to pick. My comic collecting didn't start in an LCS. Ames department store. There you go. There
Oh
you
yeah.
go.
Oh yeah. That's good stuff.
Love that. And the first place where I bought comics was a used bookstore. Could find some great books in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I there's, like I was telling you, when I was going to the movies and then I'd get out and I'd walk to the store, there was a little old lady who worked that shift, that night shift, and I never did know her name, but she was always so nice. She was about 4 foot nothing, you know, and but she would always say hi when I came in. Oh, we got some new ones back there for you. You know, she was just wonderful. You got to meet some great people along the way when you frequented those shops and
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like that a lot.
Agreed.
Yeah, it was just wonderful. And I remember there was a neighborhood store, and I think I've told you the story. On the way home we were talking about grocery night, coming home from groceries. On the way home, we would stop at this place called Ned's Fish Market, and mom and dad would pick up supper. Guy had the best French fries in the world. He just regular potatoes. He'd dice them up, throw them in grease, give them to you. Here you go. Nothing fancy.
That's the good
Loved
stuff.
them.
Yeah.
But we'd leave there, we'd go down, take a left, and there was a corner store. And in this corner store, they had a great big picture window, and you could see through that. And they had comic books hanging on a clothesline with clothespins above the register. And it's like,
Wow.
oh, I want to go in that store so bad, but we never stopped. It wasn't until uh, early 80s, the store was still around, but it was on its last legs, that I finally got to drive there and go in and bought, I think it was a Daredevil, I think, that I bought off the thing, just so I could say I got one from that store, because I
Right.
thought that was so cool. Even though I thought, oh, they could be damaging, I just thought it was a neat
Right.
display,
Right.
And little stores like that stand out in your memory. I miss that stuff. I really do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do too. Well, speaking of little stores, and I probably told you this story too. Had a first cousin who I was really close to, and we're still close. I mean, we're the same age. I think there was a couple months difference. I mean, we're almost like brothers, But he used to read comics too for a while. And in the summers when we'd have summer vacation, they lived in the next county over, so I would go stay with him for a couple of weeks. Summer, he would come stay at my place. But they lived kind of more out in the country than we did, and he had cousins that owned this little general store, and it probably, gosh, I'd say it was probably a half a mile from where his house was. But we had no wagon, and we would go on scouring the ditch lines for pop bottles because people just chucked them out, And we would have like a whole thing of pop, and we'd cash it in, and whatever there was there. I mean, we get baseball cards and bubble gum, And his brother, who was older, he would always get like a chew. He would get some tobacco to chew, because he was growing up. He was probably 12 or 13 then, But they always had like a little stack of comics, and I remember the one I bought there, and it's another one of those books I've forgotten about until we get talking, was OMAC #2. And had that one, had the thing that said, Mr. Big can own a city, and says, I don't care if it takes $1 million, $1 billion, kill OMAC, Another one of my favorite comics. But that's just a memory from that, And the Rexall store, I mean, there was two that I went to. One Rexall was in the same town as the drugstore, didn't go there often because they had a spinner rack, but they didn't have a whole lot of the DCs and Marvels. It was mostly like Gold Key, and of course, Charlton, and grew to appreciate all that stuff later. And I'm sure we'll get into that in another video. But there was a Rexall in Mount Sterling, another county over. And I remember we were going Christmas shopping with my mom and dad, and we went in Rexall to get some perfume for her sister or something like that. And I had just started making a little extra money, like mowing lawns and stuff like that. And so, but I'd save money to buy Christmas presents, because I had a couple of aunts I wanted to buy stuff for, and my sister, and mom and dad. Well, as soon as I saw that spinner rack, I was like, oh no, it's one of those deals where I got money this time, but I have to spend it on Christmas presents. And I think the one book that I got from there, it was like a issue of Action Comics. The one, I think it was like 444, the one where Green Lantern is kind of slumped down, and the cop's like, "Oh, Superman, you've killed Green Lantern."
Okay.
That you're under arrest for murder. You remember that one?
Yes, I do.
And they were looking at it like, "No, you got to spend your money on comics." Okay, we'll get you that. But so they got me that one, and they got me a Justice League 116, the one where Matter Master turned all of them into animals.
Animals,
that? Another 100-pager.
Got that wizard look on him.
Pager, yeah, right. But just stuff like that. I mean, you remember who you were with and where you're at, just because that's something you enjoyed. And that was a good memory. There was good memories associated with comic books when you were a kid.
Yep. It was funny because I mentioned my grandfather a lot, but he would, after a while, when I got to old enough to ride my bike and be able to ride it down to Stop and Go and whatnot, a couple of years might have passed in there, and he, whenever I'd go up and visit him and stuff like that, once in a while he'd say, "Do you still reading those funny books?" And oh yeah, Grandpa, I'm still reading them. And one day he said that to me. He goes, I think he called me. I think it was on the phone, which was rare for him to call us on the phone because we lived 100 feet apart, But he called up. He goes, "You still buying funny books?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm still buying them, Grandpa." And he goes, "Well, there's a lady who was on the radio swap shop, saying she's selling comic books for 25 cents a piece." He goes, "You interested?" I said, yeah, I'm interested. Where? And he goes, "It's over in Rochester. Come up, I'll take you over." So went up there. So this fella who, said, "You still reading funny books?" He was willing to take me over. And when it was a mobile home park, and the lady had a closet full of grocery bags, paper grocery bags with comics in them stacked on top of each other.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, okay, she took down the top bag, and I'm looking through, and I saw World's Finest. What was it? 199. I think it was 199 or 198. The one where Flash and Superman are racing right on the cover.
Yeah.
In World's Finest. And that's all I needed to see. That's all I needed to see. I says, "Yeah, how many are in this bag?" Blah, blah, blah. And he said, "Okay, yeah, I'll take the bag." And it was only wound up being like $20,
Oh, wow.
Back then, okay, it was $20, but I had a job. So, it was
Right.
like, hey, there you go. So, yeah, so I still have that in my collection. Those two books are in my collection. And they came from that trailer. So that's like a tether back to that little jaunt with my grandfather, you know what I mean? So it's just another great little memory that you think of when you see that comic. That's what I think of.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I just recently got those like a few months ago. The 188 and 199 had the races. Yeah. And you just reminded me of another little thing. My mom used to work with this guy, and he ran like a little business, I guess, out of a motel room, which then, people look at it, "No, that's probably kind of seedy, we'll come and see because I'm selling books out of my motel room." That's nice, right? and went, and she would go and buy books from this guy because he had Harlequin romances. You know, my mom used to love reading Harlequin romance. She was a big, and there was an author that wrote like romance stuff and mystery stuff. Her name was Phyllis Whitney. She would buy books by that author, and but she loved the Harlequin romance. But this guy's also sold comic books, but all he sold were like Harvey and Gold Keys. That's all he had, you know, because I'd already got into reading DC and Marvel. But he was selling comics 7 for $1. And so I had a nice little stack. I was like, hey, comics is comics, right? So I had a nice little stack. Probably went there, I don't know, 8 or 10 times over the months or years or whatever, you know, when she worked with this guy. But yeah, I mean, go and she'd get me like sometimes I get to go with her. Other times she would just go ahead and say, if you got these, you know, and she'd give me a stack of comics. No, you know, and I'd be pulling out stuff like Space Flammy Robinson and Woody Woodpecker and, you know, Solar Man of the Atom. And then you'd have Richie Rich and Hot Stuff. And, you know, and there was always, you know, Harvey Comics, just like Archie, just kind of weaves its way through that timeline. Because I remember, you know, before I got into like the superhero stuff, I'd go to the drugstore with my dad, and then I'd get like Sad Sack. Sad Sack was always a big, you know, Sad Sack, you know. But yeah, it's just little things like that. I mean, you'll tell a story, and hey, I remember, you know. But yeah, I was like, who sells comics 7 for $1 now? You'll never see that again.
No, I don't think so. They unless they're coverless or something like that, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's funny, like you talked about earlier, the thrill of the hunt, and it would that hunt would take you anywhere. It could happen at any moment. I used to when let's see, sophomore year in high school, my math teacher was looking for some kids to come rake her yard and stuff like that. So I volunteered to do it. So I went over. There was like two other boys that were there doing it. And one of them kind of stayed to himself, but the other one we struck up a conversation and everything that eventually got to turn to comics. And he goes, well, I got some comics down in my basement. If you want them, you can have them. Okay. All right. So we ride our bikes afterwards over to his place, go down in his basement. He got like it was almost like a crawl space type thing because it wasn't quite like 5 foot tall. So you had to kind of hunch over, dirt floor. And in the middle of this dirt floor was this big cardboard box. And then looking in the cardboard box, and sure enough, there was probably a dozen comics in there. The only one that I remember, because I grabbed them all, but the only one I remember is it was an Avengers with Kang on the cover. And I want to say it was somewhere around the 140, 139, somewhere in there. It was orange cover. I remember Kang is center on it. And I saw that, and I knew it was one that I didn't have in my collection. So it was like, yeah, okay, boom, you know. But it was like, who'd have thunk it? Just a casual meeting between him and I find that issue that I'm missing, you know. And it's just, I love that stuff. It was always great, that thrill of the hunt. You'd find them places you'd have. I don't know about you. I think we talked about it before, and I think you said you the same way. When you were in the thrill of the hunt, you have this radar. You could drive by or go by a store and it might not look like anything, but there's something in there for me. There's something in there.
Right. Yeah.
And you go in there and you'll find a comic book. One of the best finds I found was in like a flea market place, little hole in the wall place. And I drove by it several times. And this time I said, no, I'm going to go in there because there's something in there for me. I go in and they had a set of the 1966, 67 Flasher rings by Marvel. And they had the complete set of them. And for like, I think it was for $30. And I said, I couldn't get the lady over quick enough to open up the because it was in a locked case. I couldn't get her over quick enough. Here, take my money. Give me those rings.
Right.
Because I never ever saw those again. I wound up giving them away for a Christmas present to another good friend of mine who enjoyed them. So, but that was just, I loved moments like that where there's something there, or you walk into a store and there's something in here. There's a comic in here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Go to a place called Paul's Used Furniture. It's used furniture. What's it got to do with comics?
Right. I mean, everybody sold them. That was the cool thing.
Went in there, found the issue of Justice League with the Shaggy Man, the first appearance of the Shaggy Man.
Oh, the first appearance. Yeah, that was like in the 40s, right?
Yeah.
44, 43, something like that. Yeah.
Is that the one where he's holding like Green Lantern and Flash or something on the cover, and he looks like he's going to smash?
I think so. Yeah. I know I've got the book. I can't remember exactly what the issue is. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, and it's on just laying flat. You could have walked by it 9 out of 10 times, but it was just like you're looking at every crack, every crevice, every nook and cranny, and sure enough, I found that there, and I found a Flash square bound giant where he's like juggling stuff on the cover, and it's just like, and you come out of there and there's such a feeling that you had. It was just like, yeah, man, I scored big. Yeah.
Right.
I love that. I love that thrill of the hunt. I love that feeling that you found something that you really didn't expect.
Yeah, I remember I was talking about my cousin, and we stayed all night with each other all the time, and like I say, they had some comics. Well, I remember one that I read there, and I had to get a copy of it later, but it was a coverless copy of like Adventure, I want to say 352 or 353, first appearance of the Fatal Five.
Okay, yeah.
And the Sun Eater, and all that. And I was like, oh, this is a great story, and never did get to read the second part of it until years and years later. Of course, it's the death of Pharaoh Lad.
Right.
You'd see the Fatal Five, and of course it's Jim Shooter and Kurt Swan, great era of the Legion, But I remember I finally got a copy that had a cover on it. That was a big deal to me. I finally got a copy. It's got a cover on it, and all the pages are in it, But that was a good memory. I remember reading that book over and over and over every time I went to their house. And another one, and this is kind of a sad story, finding out the economics of comics. The little country store I was telling you about before, I think I had like $1. And of course, sales tax was a nickel. So I knew I had enough for 4 comic books. I had my $1 and I had my nickel. So I went in there and I plopped 4 books up on the counter, and I know one of them had to be a Justice League, and there was 3 other books, and she said that'll be $1.25. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? The price went up from 25 cents to 30 cents.
Wow.
Probably 13, 14, whatever that was.
Wow.
But I was like, oh no, and I'm like, okay, I can only get 3 comics, and of course my folks knew me by then. I get. And said, what'd you get? And I showed him. I said, well, didn't you get another one? I said, no, the comics are 30 cents now. 30 cents? Said, that's awful. My dad was like, they used to be a dime when I was a kid, But that's when I found out, okay. And then you see those little editorials saying, well, due to the price of paper and staples and, all the coloring and the artists, we're going to have to raise our prices and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay. And then from then on, I mean, prices just kept going up and up and up and up and up and up, But for the longest time, when you had the 15 centers, 20 centers, whatever else, I mean, it stayed that way for years.
Yeah.
So like a big economical shock, and like, oh gosh, what's happening here? But that's when, okay, well, I got to get another part-time job or something. Got to be able to afford it.
I got to support my
habit.
habit.
I'll go to the neighbor's yard next week, and I'll go do some painting for this guy. So there's always some little odd jobs, and a lot of times, my folks would give me money. I mean, they really helped me a lot. I don't have stories about that about my grandpa, but it was always my mom and dad. I remember like in the early days of collecting and stuff. I mean, they would always buy me books, and it was like, and then got my little stack of them on my dresser and the little stack of them in the closet, and then I had a headboard that was like a bookcase on my bed. You remember those? It'd be like a little bookcase, and that's where I had all my Peanuts and my BC books and my Hagar the Horrible and Beetle Bailey, and I had stuff like Ripley's Believe It or Not books in there, and I still got one of those.
Wow.
And I remember having one. It was about the NBA. It was called the Basketball Stars of 1975. It had the ABA when they were still going, and the NBA, and kind of show how those seasons went. And I was like, I still have that book, by the way.
Oh, wow.
But it was just you go down a rabbit hole, and we start telling these stories, and we go down a further rabbit hole. But just all kinds of great memories associated with comic books.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat. Let's see here. All right, Mastodon. I wish I would have had the option to collect pop cans and bottles for return deposit. My state didn't do that anymore by my time. Oh, that's too bad, because it was a quick, easy way for kids to make some money for comics, or for candy too. I went out for coffee with my dad 45 minutes ago, and you guys are still yakking. That's it. We knew this is what we wanted to do, just have a conversation talking about comics. We've done it many times off air, on the phone, whatever. So we thought we'd tag team Saturday morning and bring a little bit of that to Saturday mornings. Jambo. I remember the first place I got comics was Webster's Market. Old Mr. Webster would buy your books back for a nickel or a dime. New books were 15 cents. Boy, that's a good deal right there.
See, Jambo's like 40 minutes away from me, and he lives in Winchester. And so, I'm sure he's got a lot of the same kind of memories that I got about buying comic books and little stores like Webster's and all that. I wasn't really around Winchester a whole lot when I was younger, but probably like on either side of it, like Mount Sterling or Lexington or whatever. But yeah, those old stores are great.
Even my first English language comics were newsstand editions. We had newsstands specialized in foreign magazines that had an X-Men and SpiderMan US editions. Oh, pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, the first spinner rack I saw was at Kroger's. I guess I was about 8 years old. Marvel books caught my eye first.
There you go.
I actually been to a Kroger's, I think, out in New York. We went once to a family reunion out there and actually got to go to a Kroger's. What else we got here? Mastodon. I should have been out doing yard work for people, but I wasn't too ambitious as a kid. Well, I wasn't that ambitious either. Thank goodness I had a great grandmother that lived 100 feet away, grandparents that lived 100 feet away, and my folks. They all would, hey, here's a quarter. Go buy some candy or go buy a funny book. So really, that's where the majority of my money for comics as a kid came from. Oh, it's hard finding old comics. Even used bookstores avoid them. But I can find old military and coin magazines in those places.
That's cool.
One of the other things I used to find, and I still have some of them, is old Western magazines. Because I love the Old West. So they just old stories, whether they be fictional or semi-real or whatever. So, and we got Mr. Ranger Sly. Comics were only a dime for almost 30 years. Wow.
Yeah.
And 12 cents for a few years. Then rapidly in the 70s, 15. 20. Yeah. By the end of
from like 38 to like 61 or 62, they were a dime. And then they went to 12 cents.
Yeah. I came in at the 12-cent line. That was when I started. They were 12 cents. But boy, but what were they by the end of the 70s? They had, really ballooned.
Oh, they were like 35 cents, 40 cents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went from 35. Well, and then DC had the DC explosion where you had like 50 cents, but they were like 44 pages. That's going to be another video I'm going to do probably sometime the comics that came out during the 78 and the explosion. There was like 3 months. I think I'm 3 issues away from having all those books now. So that's
Wow.
a video. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Rain the Slide also says, I wasn't ambitious either, just greedy for comics. Yeah,
There
that's
you
all
go.
we are.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah.
So I mowed lawns in the summer and shoveled snow in the winter.
Yeah, I did some sign painting for a neighbor lady that lives across the road from us, and she's gone now. But her son still owns the farm, and our folks are still like the caretaker. They do the mowing, weed eating, and they go check the farm and all that. But she had me do some painted some fences for her, and painted a there was a wooden sign that went up to a family cemetery, and she had me repaint that. And then of course that was big. If you got 10, 15, 20, 30, $40, that was big money when you're 15 or 16.
Yeah,
And so every
absolutely.
penny of it went to comics. And I've told you this story before. I'd worked in the summertime one year, and that's when I got into like mail order. There was Robert Bell and J&S Comics and Passaic Book Center. That was the big one for me for a while, because they'd send you this big catalog and it had like 30 or 40 pages. No, they might have like 1 or 2 black and white repros of a cover, but you really couldn't see it. But I remember I saved up like $40. I said, well, I'm going to buy comics, Well, I bought like 65 comics for $40. I mean, a lot of them were like 75 cents, and it was all like, okay, fine to mint. And I got a big stack of like Silver Age Justice Leagues and Commandy and Brave and Bolds, and I think there were some Avengers in there. Well, the UPS guy dropped the package off, and my dad was sitting out in the yard in a lawn chair, and I'd seen a truck go by, and I was like, I wonder if that was for me, And he was sitting out there in a chair, and he had this big package, and he's like, "What's this?" I was like, "Oh, those books I ordered." You mean you spent all that money on funny books? I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Why didn't you save it for something else?" And of course, this is something I still regret saying. My dad smoked back then, right? And so I said, "You spent all that money on fun." And of course, when you get a teenager, you kind of get a mouth on you. And I didn't have it bad, but once in a while, you're going to butt heads with your parents, right? So you spent all that money on funny books, and I was like, "Well, it's better than spending it on beer and cigarettes, isn't it?" Mistake. I mean, there was nothing physical happened, because I was a teenager, and I was like, but he stayed mad at me for probably 3 weeks, and didn't talk to me, and he was like, because I kind of hit him where it lived, and I was like, okay, I regret that. And I told him about that later, and he just laughed, later years, so, yeah, I remember that now, and you saved all those funny books, didn't it? But that was when I was like, ooh, you get to be a teenager and you think you know it all. And
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm just buying funny books, it's not like I'm drinking or doing drugs or, that's one of those memories, because that was like my first big order for like a comic dealer, and and I don't know if you did much of that back then, but
No, I didn't do.
that was always one of those deals where, like I say, lived in a rural area, and Jambo will know what I'm talking about, and he might have done this, I don't know, but you'd see those little ads in Marvel and DC Comics, send 25-cent or self-addressed stamped envelope for a free list or free catalog or whatever, and I would get those catalogs in all the time, but most of the time I didn't have a whole lot of money to order stuff. But I was, okay, make your first choices and then list alternate choices in case we don't have these in stock. You would always get the alternate books half of your order, and then they would either refund your money or they would give you like a credit slip. So I would always send the credit slip, keep sending it back until I had got all my money spent. But this was one time I actually got almost every book that I ordered, from Passaic. And I was in heaven, man. I had comic books all over my bed. I was like, wow, there's this. Of course, at this time there was no internet, so you didn't know what the covers or what was in the store. You might get like a book that you got referred to you earlier in another issue, and you want to know what that book was. Like, say, ooh, I wonder what's in this book. But it was like you got to see those covers for the first time, and a lot of it was like Neil Adams and Murphy Anderson and Kurt Swan and Jack Kirby and all these great artists. And it was just like, okay. And then any spare money I had from then on, I mean, when I started driving, any money that I didn't spend on keeping gas in my car and insurance and keeping the upkeep, it probably went to comic books, because once I got a part-time job, I mean, and money would just start flying. Of course,
Mhm.
later on, I discovered comic book shops, but there wasn't a whole lot of those. There wasn't any where I was at. You had to go to Lexington. It was, like an hour away from where we lived. And it's probably like early 80s, mid 80s before I actually went to a comic. And actually, I think probably one of the first ones I went to was Comic Book World in Florence, where Eric works. That's, when I got older, like in my 20s, that was like probably one of the first ones I went to. So that was a big deal. And the bad thing was, another kind of sad story. I had
Oh,
bought a bunch of X-Men comics at a yard sale for like 20 cents a piece, and they were like, most of it was like all of the John Byrne and Byrne and Englehart, or not Englehart. What's the guy that was the writer for the X-Men back in those days?
Claremont?
Claremont, yeah, Claremont. I was thinking Englehart. Englehart did Justice League and Avengers. But yeah, I had a stack of them. And so I was like, well, I'm not really into Marvel that much. So I took those books with me, and I was like, okay, well, I'll trade or try to sell them. Well, so they gave me a script for all those. They gave me like half the bag of books in trade. And then I bought Bronze Age DCs. And then later on, I was like, oh God, why did I do that? Because later on, those books became a little bit more expensive. You know what I'm talking about? But I
Yep.
got a lot of those back later. So at least I'm glad I did that. But that's another one of those stories, But you don't know. You just the more you stay in it, the more you know about it, and you make some bad decisions sometimes, and that was a bad one. But happy to
Oh,
have what I have.
exactly. I mean, what's that hippie always says? Hippies collectibles?
Like what you
Collect.
collect, or collect what you like, and love what you collect.
There you go. Words to live by right there.
Right.
All right. What else we got going on here? Let's see. Just like he has to go for groceries and stuff before stores close. So happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, Ranger.
Yes, happy New Year. That was a fun. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. Appreciate you stopping by. Mastodon, Weird War Tales from December 1979 has a 50-cent price on it.
Oh
Holy
yeah.
mackerel. Wow.
Yeah.
Jimbo, happy New Year, Ranger. Care. See you next year. I'm still kind of new at this, so I'm hunting, pecking. Here we go. Yep, I did that, Shannon. Jambo's when he was talking about what was it, going up to whatchamacallit?
Yeah. I don't know if he was talking about the mail order stuff or the.
Oh, yeah, that was it. It was the mail order stuff. Yeah.
I guess he'll let us know.
And then Southern Comic Geek, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Fun conversation. Thank you very much. Fens the Spook. Hey, Fens, how you doing? Long time no hear from.
Yeah.
How you doing? Yeah. Yeah, Mo, Comic Connection.
Comic Connection in Lexington. Yeah, that was probably one of my first shops I ever went to. I mean, and they had like Bronze Age DCs like in a 50-cent box, and I went nuts, And like I say, Marvel was later on, but I think I got a lot of those monster reprints from the 70s that Marvel did. That's where I stacked up on those, and that place is still there though, I think. Or no, is it? I can't remember now. No, that might be I think there was a shop in Lexington now called Comic Interlude, and that's just a little ways from where Comic Connection was. So yeah, that shop is still there, the Interlude.
Okay. Later, Ranger. And Fences Book. Good time right now to be buying DCs. The speculators seem totally uninterested, freeing it up for us. Yes.
Well, that was the bad thing where I didn't get on the Marvel bandwagon until a bit later. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I would love to have, is way out of my price range, and I'm like, and it's one of those things you just kind of have to be okay with it. You can get, if I want to read the stories, you can get the reprints, you can read it online, so I'm all good with that.
Oh yeah, I'm finding more and more there's more situations like that with me in my collection. I mean, I know I'm never gonna own a Hulk #1. You know, it's just you just have to realize it. So long as I've got a reprint of it, I've still got the story. I can read it.
Right.
You know. So give me DC and EC, and give me give
There
me
you
death.
go.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, how you doing? We made it over 2 hours now, huh?
Oh yeah, wow. It's been 2 hours. Yeah.
I just looked down at that thing and I said, "No, wow, that's really that time." And I'm like, "We said, we get going and man, time just
Good track.
evaporates." I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm looking forward to doing this every Saturday morning. I can't wait.
Oh yeah.
So now
And,
I know you've got a thing you got to get to.
yeah, I'm getting together in a couple hours here with a music buddy of mine. Like I say, I've been putting him off. Didn't want to, but just the way things worked out. And he said today he was free, so yeah, I want to get with him, and I think we're supposed to meet at Waffle House and eat a little bit, and maybe go back to his place. He's going to show me. He's got a practice place in a studio in his home, so that's the place we're going to be practicing at once we get this thing going. He's, we've played together before in another band that's probably non-existent now, but there's another guy that he plays with. They play together in an Eagles tribute band, and I mean they sound just exactly like the Eagles. But he wanted a project outside of that, so we're going to. We've got some songs we've been practicing on, probably like 10 or 15 cover songs, stuff like Tom Petty and Badfinger and, like stuff from the 70s. And, so we're going to later on, the guy that's supposed to be playing drums with us, he actually was in a bad way a while back. I mean, he had some heart problems. He had to have bypass surgery, and then he got out of the hospital, and then he got an infection, got a blood infection. So he had to go back, but I think he's doing pretty good now. And he said he can't wait to get back on the drums again. So and that takes a lot of energy. So
yeah, good for him.
I'll get together with him, and I think he knows another guy or two. We're just going to kind of see how it sounds, and just play it by ear. But he's, I know these guys are great musicians, and I'm just kind of, I'm just happy they asked me, to play. But that's the thing. It's just like collecting comics or things. I mean, you start talking to people, and you make the connections, and probably, I don't get on Facebook a whole lot. I just recently got back on there, but haven't posted anything. But I'm like, okay, probably half of the people on there are relatives. The other half is split between comic book contacts and websites and music. So that's where all my it's the comics. The comics probably take precedence. I'll have to say that, but the music kind of feeds into the collecting, so I can use the money from that to like feed into the comics. So that's I guess that's like a win-win, and that you have my attention. Love the set. Oh yeah. Probably the bulk of my collection is like 70s stuff, But we'll get into that in other videos. We're gonna. I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but we're going to invite some people on, maybe like one person at a time, and talk to them about their comic origins and whatever they want to show and talk about. And but we'll be getting into that later. And
absolutely.
Now, we're just grateful that everybody showed up in the chat, and appreciate all you guys. And hope you come back for another show.
Yeah, because we were talking last night. We were just saying, well, we don't know if anybody will stop by or whatever, but if nothing else, we're going to have some conversation about comics.
We're still going to talk about it, right?
That's right. And I really appreciate all you guys that stop by. Like Shannon says, it's awesome. It's awesome. We love hearing the stories, just sharing them in the comments and stuff like that, because that's what we love. We love the comics, but we love the stories behind the comics you collect and everything like that. So what do you think, Shannon? You ready to call it?
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up today if you're ready. It's been
I'm ready, I think.
Really enjoyed this.
Yes, I did too. Thank you for being here and showing all those great comics.
Oh,
As
thank you,
always.
man. I appreciate you making me a part of this. It's
And
really
you
cool.
know, I love the stories, man. I love the stories. I look forward to hearing many, many more of them. And we're gonna do it right here because we're gonna tag team Saturday morning every Saturday morning. I think next week we'll be starting at 10 o'clock, and that's going to be the usual time unless one of us has got something going on where we need to move it. But we're going to try and make it 10 o'clock. So hopefully we'll have all you folks show up again and listen to us yak and join in, and we'll have some fun on a Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah. Lots of fun.
All right. So let's see. Just go through this one more time to catch everybody up. Music. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 70s music. Thanks,
Jambo. Thank you very much, Jambo. We greatly appreciate it, brother. Fens, adios, amigos. Yes, Fens, good to hear from you, man. Good to hear from you. Paulo, yeah. None of us care. Go away. Oh, no.
Heck on foreigners.
Great show, guys. Great discussion. Happy New Year, and a Happy New Year to you as well, Macedon.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, Paulo. And a Happy New Year to you too, Jambo. All right. That's it from the remote WSAN TV 75 studios. So from Funny Book Junction, we'll see you all next week. Same bat time. Well, little later. Same bat channel, though.
Same bat channel, yeah.
There you go. Happy New Year, everybody. Shannon, Happy New Year.
Guys. Happy New Year, buddy.
All right. Take care.
You too.